Thank you, Mr President. The death of Shireen Abu Akleh on 11 May is devastating and tragic, as is any death of a civilian in a region filled with violence and turmoil. I refer to a private member statement made earlier in the sitting day, which was littered with inaccuracies and assumptions based on dubious media reports and statements from the Palestinian Authority. For members to lay blame solely on Israel before the results of any investigation are complete is highly irresponsible and a gross example of the members' clear bias against the Jewish state. Members in this place have a responsibility to this Parliament and the people of New South Wales.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition on a point of order.
Wide latitude is given in relation to adjournments, but if this member wishes to make assertions about other members, he needs to do so by substantive motion, not via an adjournment speech.
Indeed, I'm not sure who the member is speaking to, but I would just caution the member in that regard.
There is no reference to a member. Members have a responsibility to this Parliament and to the people of New South Wales to state only facts, not a perception of the facts. It's not appropriate for members of this House to be spreading information which is unable to be verified and may turn out to be gross disinformation. The facts with respect to this matter are that no one knows who shot the journalist, and we await the results of an investigation into the tragic incident. It's grossly irresponsible for members of Parliament half a world away to speculate on the nature of the shooting, especially one which has had significant media coverage and is the subject of an ongoing investigation. Our thoughts are with Ms Abu Akleh's family, friends and colleagues in the media. It's tragic to see a journalist be shot when reporting any story and when doing any job. But until we know exactly what happened, members should cease finger-pointing and blame games. Jumping to conclusions in the immediate aftermath of a tragedy is foolhardy and corresponds with a typical narrative of Israel being immediately blamed for any incident, especially when the facts have yet not to be fully established. The Israeli government has made very clear its commitment to, as stated by the Defence Minister Benny Gantz, to uncover the truth about the circumstances surrounding the death. This should be welcomed by all members of the House, with a democratic nation, Israel, conducting a proper investigation into the allegations surrounding the death. Where, indeed, has the condemnation been of 3 innocent Israelis who were slaughtered to death with an axe while they were celebrating Israel's Independence Day? These attacks occurred on a main street and in a public park in a small city. This should have been noted prior to this occurrence. Arrests have been made of 2 Palestinians on the 8th of May in connection with these sickening axe attacks. The discussion, regrettably, is very selective in a hasty condemnation of brutal attacks against innocent civilians. As members should be aware, recently there has been a wave of murderous attacks throughout Israel by Palestinians or Israeli Arabs. In the last month alone, 18 Israelis have been killed at the hands of terrorists. Regarding the Israeli police action during the funeral procession, I'd like to point out the plans for the procession were coordinated between the Israel police and the Abu Akleh family in advance of the funeral. It's been stated approximately 300 rioters arrived at the hospital in Jerusalem and prevented the loading of the coffin onto the hearse to travel to the cemetery, which also had been organised and extensively planned. Instead, the driver of the hearse was threatened by the mob, and the mob then proceeded to carry the coffin on an unplanned procession on foot to the cemetery against the prepared arrangements made by the family, which should be respected. The depiction of events to this House, and specifically stating with Israeli police attacking the funeral procession, is based on falsehoods. The instructions of the Israeli police sought that the coffin be returned to the hearse in coordination with the ambassador of the European Union and the family, but they were refused by the mob. It's wrong to state that the procession was attacked. The actions of the police were to prevent the mob from taking the coffin, which evidently is a reasonable action to preserve the arrangements made by the family and to ensure the procession was conducted in a dignified manner. It's important, Mr President, for the facts to be established, and I would hope that when the facts are established that the House will take note of what they are.